And just like that, we're back home. Our home casino, the Commerce Casino. Last time we were here, it didn't end off so great, but it's a new year, so we're bound to run good, right? Anyways, after that last part 2 debacle, I think it's about time we take a little bit of a step down just to get my mind back right. So we're going to be playing the 5-10 game, which is the 1500 max, as opposed to the 10-20 game, which is running. If it's good, I'll play, to be honest. But otherwise, I'm looking to be playing this, and let's get into these hands.
Look, today's session is an absolute roller coaster and there's so much to go over, so let's not waste any time today. No intros, no outros, bada bing, bada boom. First hand to go over, we look down at the old ace-jack offsuit. There's a lot of action to go over, so bear with me. Out of the gun decides to make it $35, plus one decides to make the call, and I'm here looking down at the beautiful ace-jack offsuit from the middle position. I decide to 3-bet to $150. It folds over to an action player in the cutoff who decides to cold 4-bet me here. $410 is the new price of poker. Folds all the way back over to me. And unfortunately, although I am a fan of a punt, not this time around. I'm going to have to get out of the way. But if this is any foreshadowing of how today's session is going to go, we're going to have a rough time trying to extract some chips. So let's lock in and focus up for today's session. If you guys are over the long intros, because God knows I am, let me know by dropping a like down below and commenting down what you guys think about these quick and banger videos. I mean, this hand is on such a different level. I don't even know where to start with. And this just goes to show you how strong the table is. Again, without giving away too much, I'm going to get you guys straight into this next hand, which ends up being one of the craziest hands I've ever played on the vlog, and I'm not bullshitting you guys. This is ridiculous. Hijack decides to make it $35. The cutoff decides to make the call, and I'm here in the small blind. I decide to make the call with king queen offsuit, a little bit on the looser side. I think 3-betting is a little better, but just calling is fine in every case. I think so. The big blind comes along as well, and we are off 4 or 5 ways to a pretty great flop that comes king 10-4 rainbow. The action checks over to the initial raiser, who decides to c-bet for $40, and surprisingly, every single person in this hand decides to make the call. Already looking to get the hell out of this situation, because it's never fun to have top pair with an okay kicker or a pretty decent kicker against like 3 other opponents. When the turn card comes to ace of hearts, this looks like my out. This is a horrible turn card for me. Queen jack now gets there, although I am blocking that. And every ace jack or ace queen that was barreling the flop is now better than me. We decide to check it over, and astonishingly, honestly, it blows my mind when nobody bets at this and the action gets checked all the way through. So now, like, every number, like the matrix is running through my mind. I'm trying to figure out what the hell everybody has. It doesn't make any sense to me that none of these people would be betting this turn card, which would be so favorable for everyone. But all that being considered, I'm never going to complain, especially when the river comes a beautiful king. No flushes get there. The only hand that really has me beat is a slow played aces or 10s or a ace king, I guess. But all those hands just don't make that much sense if you don't c-bet the turn. All that being considered, I decide to make a value bet here of $185. I was in between my sizings, but ended up choosing 185 because I want to give somebody the incentive to bluff me out of the hand by showing that I can still give up the hand since I'm playing about $1,000 effective behind. So I landed on $185. It folds over to the initial raiser, who goes deep into the tank. Now I'm praying for a call. Please call me with ace queen or ace jack or whatever the hell you have. And he does something that is going to surprise everyone.
All in.
All in. You heard that right. There is no CGI. This is not a Hollywood actor. This gentleman decides to go all in. The action folds back over to me, and obviously you can just even feel the disgust and the dismay. I'm completely at a loss for words. It's very infrequent where somebody does something at the table that completely blows my mind. This is the time where it completely screws me up. It's so hard for a bad player or a recreational player to have a bluff here, but this is definitely the strongest player at the table. The question is, since I'm holding one of the 4 kings available, and there's 3 out there, there's 3 accounted for, what hands does he have for value that we can beat? There's one hand. one hand only, and that's king jack. The only hand that can be going for value on this river as a very thin value jam. Otherwise, he's going to have a hand specifically like aces, tens, or ace king for value that all beat me. All three of those hands are feasible, although not likely in his range, specifically because on the turn card that wouldn't be improving him, he does not double barrel. Especially against three other opponents, I think that's a fine card to double barrel. And again, following along with me, I know this is a really long hand and a lot of jargon has been spit out to you guys. A lot of really random bluffs are in his range. Look, there's some missing flush draws that bricked out, and the more important options are there's hands like jack tens that exist, hands like queen 10 that exist, hands like ace jack or ace queen that can really change the entire dynamics by changing and putting these hands in their bluff range. After a really long tank, I realized that I do have my opponent covered, and after a monstrous tank and a huge spot for me, especially considering how rough this downswing has been, I decide to make another hero call. It is inevitable, you know me. If there's a chance where curiosity will get the best of me, I am gonna take it. My opponent gives the old tap, tap, run it back, and he shows jack 10 for the bricked out gutter nutter butters and a great bluff on his hand. Unbelievable to turn a hand like jack 10 into a bluff there. He double blocks the nut straight as well as the set of tens that turns into a boat. Amazing bluff on his hand. I cannot hype this guy up enough. Amazing bluff by you. You just unfortunately bluffed a station. Unbelievable. What a hand. What a crazy freaking hand. What a way to start this episode. Let's see if we can't keep the same energy going. If that doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what the hell will. What a great hand from both adversaries in this hand, whether that's myself or him. Unbelievable bluff. Great situation. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get right back into today's episode. I'm going to need you guys to grab a bag of popcorn, a bag of potato chips, whatever the case may be, because we have over 10 hands. Yes, over 10 hands to go into today's episode. And I know you guys like the way I break these hands down, so I'm going to do my very best to give it to you guys raw. Whoa. I look down at ace 10 of hearts here after an early position limp. I decide to isolate this gentleman to $50. The button, the small blind, and the limper all make the call, and we are going way too many ways to the flop as it comes king 4 deuce monotone. Just clubs out there. Not a good flop for us whatsoever. I do not think that I have a very decent bluffing range in this spot, especially when I'm holding 2 red cards. So I decide to check when it's checked over to me. The button thinks about it for a brief moment before deciding to check it back. And we're off to a turn card, which comes a 10. Well, this is interesting. I decide to check it over to the button again, who's been very aggressive when checked too. And he decides to bet $205. Nearly a pot-sized bet. Jeez Louise, I don't know what the heck is going on here. But when the action folds over to me, I am the last person to act. There's nobody else who can make the call besides me. So I decide to make the call here. I have a really decent hand. I have the nut kicker, at least when it comes to second pair. So there's no way I think I can let my hand go here. I think that'd be really bad, really nitty. And I just don't have enough information on either of the people involved in this hand. So I'm going to go ahead and make the call here and live to fight another day. The river comes the absolute gin card. I cannot describe it any better than this, as it comes another 10. When the action is on me to start off with, I think there's only one option to do, and that is
All in.
to jam all in. My opponent only has about $600 left. Look, I don't need to construct bluffing ranges here. The only real bluffs I'm ever going to have here are a hand like ace X of clubs, holding the nut flush blocker. So that's pretty much it. Otherwise, yeah, I'm going to have like boats and river trips with the nut kicker. And this hand's just really good, and it's nice to be this thin when you're going for a river jam in a polar situation. My opponent goes deep within the tank, and I'll save you guys from watching it. He goes into the tank for over 2 minutes before deciding on a fold. So not great, not bad. Happy we were able to either suck out on him or just, I really don't know, to be quite honest, but happy to take down another pot nonetheless. We have started today's session off on an unbelievable run. By this point of the session, I've been incapable of f***ing it up. And excuse me for the language, I'm definitely going to be beeping that out, but I have not been able to mess up. We look down at Jack 9 offsuit from the button, and I'm going to go ahead and raise it here Pretty decent hand to just have here. I'm gonna be opening like 60 to 80% of my buttons, especially when it's folded to me with all that dead monies in the middle. So when I race to $25, both the blinds decide to make the call. We're off to a flop. The flop comes ace, jack 5, rainbow. When the action checks over to me, it's nice having a hand like this in the check bank range, as well as some weaker aces as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and check it back, and we're off to a turn card. The turn card comes a 10, and it does bring a backdoor flush draw. When it checks it over to me, I'm going to go ahead and bet here for value as well as equity denial. $35 seems like a decent price. Only the big blind decides to make the call, and we are off to a river. The river comes a deuce of hearts, changes nothing. The flush draws brick out, but the big blind is having a bit of a moment, a pause of a moment before he decides to throw out a bet of $125. Look, we're playing live. People don't bluff enough. All that being said, I think my hand's just a little too good to fold. I don't know what kind of weird bluffs this guy's gonna have in his range, but I decided to make the call, and he pretty quickly shows Ace-Deuce of diamonds. We were wrong, and that is that. It's almost disrespectful to complain about losing that last hand, considering how well everything has gone to this point, and especially when we look down at pocket rockets. Pocket aces here, oh my gosh. And the person to my right decides to limp here. Hey buddy, no limping allowed in this area. These pool waters are going to be getting deeper by the second. I decide to raise to $50 here. Action Jackson is on the button, and he decides to make the call. The small blind calls as well. And we're going to the flop 3 ways as we see a very, very favorable flop. The flop comes ace, queen 4 with 2 clubs. So not only do we flop top set, but we even block the flush draws, which are the nut flush draws. Anyways, when the hand checks over to me, I decide to c-bet a little bit on the larger side. There still are some flush draws out there, as well as a ton of middling pairs, and hopefully somebody just overset themselves with 4s or something. So I bet $140. These people have been super sticky post flop, but in this case, they're not. Both players decide to make the fold, and we take down a massive pot. Great feeling. We are on cloud 9 at this point. It's been a while since we ran this good, and I am not complaining whatsoever. We're barely halfway through this session, and the action has still been going nuts, at least as far as to this point. The entire table has agreed to put on the $20 straddle, which is actually a blind race here at the Commerce Casino, because you're not allowed to straddle for whatever the frick reason. I don't know why. I've never got an explanation from the floor staff, but that's probably the only lame thing about the Commerce. Well, I mean, I can go on for days, honestly, but we'll keep it at that. I'm the blind raise as mentioned for $20, plus 1 limps. Next to act decides to make it $80 off of about a $2,500 stack. I'm in the blind raise as mentioned for the 3rd time. I don't know why I keep mentioning that. And we look down at ace queen offsuit. Man, this is a pretty interesting spot to be in, especially considering there's a limper in between myself and the $80 raiser. I am out of position, and I will be for the entirety of the hand, no matter who decides to make the call. So it's time to make this bigger, because we learned from the last vlog, can't be making these 3 bets really small, because they're just more enticed to make the call. So I decide to re-raise here to $330. Pulls back over to the initial raiser, who pretty quickly gets out of the way, and just like that, we take another pot down. Let's go. By this point in the session, I've been running so freaking egregiously well that I think it's about time that we get on a little bit of a winner's tilt or a winner's spew. I look down at ace 5 of hearts, and I decide to raise to $60 as that 5, 10, 20 game is now on, and I'm under the straddle when I open it up. Middle position decides to 3-bet here to $175. It is that action player that has been aforementioned, and I decide to make the call here, considering there's a couple ways I can make a pretty big hand, and if I get there, it'll be fairly disguised. We are off to the flop. Heads up, that comes 663 rainbow, and there is a heart out there. After a little bit of thinking, I decide to just get over to my opponent, keep this flow continuing in the right direction. My opponent decides to c-bet here for a pretty small amount of $100. Just way too small to be making the fold. We have a ton of decent turn cards to add equity to our hand. Hoping for a 4 of hearts. And I'm going to ask you guys, maybe if you guys want to leave a little like, maybe in 3, 2, 1, leave a little like for the good luck. The turn card comes an unbelievable 3. Doesn't change anything. Pretty horrible turn card. Although we are now chopping with ace highs, that's pretty much it. We're only playing for a chop at this point. I check it over to him once again, and he decides to bet a little bit on the larger side as he goes $300. I go deep into the tank trying to figure out if it's really worth it. What bluffs can he have? And there's just not a whole lot of bluffs. Maybe king high like king queen or king jack. And even then, it's just too much of a spew to make the call. So at least I stop the winner's tilt right here at least in this juncture of the hand. I decide to make a pretty reasonable fold and a disciplined fold at that, as we can live to fight another day. This next hand is the only hand that I do miss on video, but it is important to share it, so I'm going to be sharing it. The cutoff decides to limp here. The small blind limps, and I'm in the straddle, and I look down at Jack 7 offsuit, and I have no action, so I can't check, even though I would be with this hand, or raise if I was crazy. Anyways, we're off to a flop. The flop comes ace 5 deuce rainbow. Horrible board for my hand, especially considering we have no backdoor. So I'm pretty much over it when the action checks over to me. I decide to check it over to the cutoff, who surprisingly does not take advantage of the position, and he checks it back as well. The turn card comes a 7, a pretty interesting card now that we make a second pair. When it checks over to me, it's about time that I take over the reins on this hand. My opponent did not show any type of wanting or yearning for this pot, so it's about time that I do that. I decide to lead here for $40, and the opponent in the cutoff decides to make the call, and the small blind gets out of the way pretty quickly, and we're off to a river. The river comes a juicy one as it comes a jack. We now make 2 pair and a very disguised one at that. When the action starts off with me, I decide to bet here $160. My opponent pretty quickly decides to make the call. I'm assuming he had an ace of some sort and didn't bet it in position. I show my hand down, and it is good, of course. We pick up a pretty juicy pot there. Also, you guys were all rickrolled. Never gonna give you up. Well, we obviously got a little carried away in that last segment, but that's going to be okay. I don't mind showing you a little bit of behind the scenes of what the hell's going on in this room. But this next hand, there's some pretty interesting stuff yet again. That interesting stuff means more limping, a lot more limping. The cutoff decides to limp here, and we look down at ace jack offsuit, ace of diamonds, jack of clubs. I'm going to go ahead and raise it up, $50 to go. Both the blinds and this limper decide to make the call. And again, that's not it's not a surprise, a pretty regular occurrence from what the heck's going on today's session. So we're off to a flop 4 ways that comes ace, queen, 4 with 2 clubs. When the action checks over to me, I decide to c-bet here for $140. A little bit on the larger side, I know, but considering there's over $200 in the middle, that's a pretty reasonable sizing. There's some flush draws out there as well as some straight draws, but to our disgust, everyone decides to fold, and they fold pretty quickly. I'm okay with that, though. You know, we're making hands, and that's could be a lot worse things going on. In this next hand, the shorty from under the gun decides to raise to $40. He's not short in stature, but short in chip stature. We look down at ace, queen of hearts. What a beautiful sight to see. I'm telling you, we've been getting slapped by the deck straight in the face to this point. I decide to 3-bet here to $160, looking to get his entire stack in the middle, which is about 50 big blinds. When it folds back over to him, he decides to jam for $500. I pretty quickly decide to make the call, and we're off to a flop. The flop comes king jack 10. Oh my gosh. I cannot run any better than this at the freaking moment. The turn comes a 9 of clubs, and the river comes a 6. We show ace queen, and wait, what? The dealer's not pushing the pot in my direction? Excuse me? Dealer? Pardon me? I have the nuts. Oh, wait. You're telling me the opponent also has the nuts? Oh, okay. So my opponent also had ace queen. Gosh darn it. Well, like I said, we can't really complain. We've been running pretty gosh darn good to this point. Going over the very last hand of this video, we look down at 6-7 of diamonds. This is now back-to-back hands, actually back-to-back hands. Yes, these last 3 hands have happened in exact simultaneous order. We decide to raise to $30. The button calls, the big blind calls, and we're off to a flop. The flop comes 7 deuce deuce rainbow. I decide to bet here $55. I don't know if I love my bet. I understand what it's doing. Equity denial, a little bit of that, a little bit of getting value from worse hands, but it's just not a board texture that's going to, be hitting my range that often. The even worse thing is that my opponent decides to raise me to $105. Yes, you heard that right. We have a new dealer who is like second time ever dealing, and I don't think he caught that my opponent made an illegal raise size. The raise would have to be at least $110, but whatever, $5 discount to me sounds awesome. I decide to make the call, and we're off to a turn card. The turn comes the king. He decides to bet $165. Now that my kicker has improved, it's interesting to see what he can possibly have here. I think if he has trips, the only trips he can have really is like Ace-Deuce suited, and that's just not a whole lot of value hands. There's a couple of weird hands that he can have in his range, like 4-5 or 3-4 or 7-8, and just be going crazy with it. So I decide to make the call. That seems okay here, and we're off to a river. The river comes a pretty innocuous 3. Not a whole lot changes here, and when my opponent decides to bet $315, I'm put in the absolute blender. And no, this is not like the Ninja blender. This is not like a high-end fancy blender. This is like a blender that's on its very last blend. I don't feel great about this situation. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing in this hand at this point. I wish I didn't c-bet the flop, and even that I did c-bet the flop and I got raised. How the hell did I end up on this river? And why am I even being faced with a $315 river bet? I decide to make the stationary call, which is almost a staple on this channel, and my opponent pretty quickly decides to show Ace-Deuce of diamonds. Not great, but I mean, yeah, not really. I don't even know. I don't know what the hell was going on in that hand. Just unfortunate that it happened out that way, and that's going to do it for now.
Well, things started off really great with that crazy hero call, and since then, it's hit the fan. So, yet another session that I wanted to cut short, but I didn't have enough hands to make a vlog, and I was just, I don't know, got some really bad anxiety today, and I was just like, I want to leave, but I came to play so I can make a vlog, but anyways, we're now into this game for $3,000. The game's horrible. Yeah, hoping it's, I don't even know. We're looking for a table, I don't even know what's going on, but we were up 1,500 at some point. Now we're down. We're in for 3K. We have 1,500 in our stack, so hopefully we can come unstuck. We'll see how it goes. I really don't know, but I'm gonna hop back in there and gonna focus up, do a little meditation, a quick little 2-minute meditation hit, and hopefully lock in.
So after starting off on an unbelievable heater, all good things have to come to an end, and this fire was extinguished. The firefighters came out to play, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, by this point, I still have over 10 hands to go over in the second part, and as you guys can see, we're nearing 30 minutes of an episode. I'm not here to kill you guys or bombard you guys with another hour-long episode. That doesn't sound exciting. And I really hope you guys enjoyed the enthusiasm and the honesty in today's hand breakdown. We have a ton more in the next session, and it is just continuing on from this point because we still have 6 more hours of play in the next session. So I really hope you guys come through on the next one. I'll let you guys know all the numbers then, but at this exact point, I'm into the game for $3,000. I ended up topping off a little bit, doubled up a pretty big stack, and then now we're back down after a couple of misses with sets and misses with some spots. Nothing really exciting besides the last couple of hands where we lost some hands, where we lost some money. Anyways, I appreciate you guys as always. Stay happy, stay healthy, and more importantly, run good at the tables. If you guys made it this far in the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bells if you haven't already. And I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for continuing to make my dreams come true and supporting this lovely community we have built as a team. I'll see you guys on the next episode, and until then, deuces.